My name is Mark Chalmers, and I'm president and CEO of Energy Fuels. And Energy Fuels is a New York and Toronto listed company that is building a very significant, global significant critical mineral company centered around uranium. But today we're here to talk about our rare earth initiatives, the strategy that we've been pushing forward over the last 4 years. And I'm very pleased to be joined, Matt, with Jack Lifton and Constantine Karayannopoulus, who have both been mentors for me for the last 4 or so years to help me, build this strategy around doing it, not talking about it, okay? Doing it, not talking about it. And I think that, over the last 4 years, I think we've had a number of very material announcements and a lot of recent announcements of how we're making significant progress on these fronts.
Right. Well, I'm glad we're here. And I'll just say this up front for people listening to this. We're not going to talk about the uranium today. Well, we might articulate at the end, but right now we're going to focus on rare earths. It's been a kind of tumultuous market for rare earths over the past couple of years, the ups and the downs. But we need it. Critical minerals, important. I hope you're going to tell us, Mark, about some of your conversations in DC in a second. But let's start with the big news here. Commercial production of on-spec separated rare earths out of the White Mesa Mill. Tell me more.
Yeah, we, again, we've been talking about what we call the phase 1 separation plant for a year or so. And it's operating right now. And it's operating at specification. And a lot of that has and the learnings that we've had over the last 3 years, in making sure that we can get the uranium and the thorium out of the monazite, and building and piloting, extensive piloting, including some scale up where we did partial separations to remove the lanthanum and the cerium a few years back, and now we have a functioning plant that's in the same building as our uranium SX and our vanadium SX. So I think it's the only facility in the world where you can do all those elements in a single building in Utah. And I think that is material because our people understand solvent extraction, and the commissioning of this rare earth SX plant is testament that they know how to do this, and they were able to do it, and they were able to scale it up and commission it in about 1 month's time, which in itself is remarkable.
Well, talk to me about the commercial bit. Like, I know you did it under budget, great, but when you use a phrase like commercial production, that's a big deal. So what were the learnings, and maybe talk about some of the economics if you can?
Well, I mean, commercial is the plant's designed to separate up to 1,000 tons of NdPr per year, a given feed, okay? And the feed has been our Achilles heel. And over the last, several years, we started securing material from Chalmers. We secured the Bahia project that isn't operating yet, but we're doing the exploration and a resource, or moving towards a resource estimate, the Donald project. We've been short of feed. So we have basically commissioned it by running through 500 tons of monazite. And I believe this is our 4th run that we've received monazite from Chalmers. So we've had 4 goes at trying to perfect and optimize at significant scale when most companies might move 10 tons or 20 tons. We've done a couple thousand tons of commissioning. So basically it's operating at scale. We don't have, enough material to keep running it for the next year, but that's okay. That's okay because uranium business is hot. And now that we're commissioning, and we've commissioned this plant, we've got about another month or so to run it. We're going to shut it down. We're going to switch over to uranium run for the next few years while we're continuing to build out our story, both when it comes to the supply molecules and the scale up of this plant, probably 4 to 6 times larger for what we call phase 2.
Okay, so I want to stick with the rare earths and not get distracted about what's going to be happening with the uranium. Chalmers, you've mentioned, also Base Resources. Sorry, is that transaction with Base closed yet?
No, it's still work in progress.
Right. And what do those two things give you in terms of that feed? Because that, I say, it's Achilles' heel for a while now. Maybe the problems are solved. What do you think it's going to be able to deliver for the business in terms of that feed?
Well, if we close the base deal and we get the project constructed, it's still got to get all its permits and approvals from the Madagascar government. The combination of those three projects will give us around 50,000 tons a year of monazite, 50,000, which is that 5 to 6,000 tons of NdPr. And what's really exciting is it provides us with monazite resources well over a couple million tons of monazite. So you're talking multi-decades of secured supply with the acquisition and the closing of these three projects. So it's world material. It's pushing the scale of Linus right now. And we've been doing it sort of quietly while we're advancing the uranium strategy too.
Right. And also let's look at what the on-spec component of that headline means for you in terms of the conversations that you're able to have going forward. So NdPr, automotive sector, which Jack will know all about this. They will surely be leaning in here, and I imagine government will too. So perhaps, you've been to DC, I know you have. So what are the conversations up there?
Well, it's interesting, DC, because they say there are really two kinds of companies in the rare earth business that show up in DC. Those that ask for money first, and they'll deliver second. And what a rarity is, Energy Fuels shows up to DC and says, see what we've done, and we haven't asked for money, but we will in time when we've connected the dots for a world material capabilities to effectively produce, I don't know, half of the United States requirements for rare earths potentially as we move forward. So that's the delta. That's the difference, and we're proud of that. We didn't ask for money first because we wanted to move quickly, and we could move quickly. We had the balance sheet to move quickly, and we had the advisors like Jack and Constantine to help us stay focused on our strategy.
Okay, and just in terms of, and I want to bring the guys in a second, but in terms of what the U.S. government, the various departments, you got defense. You're obviously dealing with the guys on the energy side with uranium, and obviously the kind of commercial aspect of this for the U.S. government. Lots of talk around IRA money kind of casting down to downstream for groups. You've not tried to insert yourself into that. You're telling me now, which is good news. But what is the government going to be able to do for you if they're quite pleased that you're not asking them for money? How do they help?
Well, we are starting to explore what kind of assistance they could provide. We are having them work in like an advocacy role when it comes to both in the United States and with some of these other countries like Australia and Madagascar. And Brazil, and we're priming them. We're priming them that the request is coming, and we've had discussions with a number of their groups that provide funding, whether it be in the United States or in developing countries or places like Australia, including with the Australian government. So right now we're just making sure they understand the significant material progress we're making, and that we're doing it. And we haven't asked thus far, but it's coming in time. So I think they're excited. They are genuinely excited about the progress we're making.
Right. And I'm going to bring Constantine in here. Constantine, you've been in this from the beginning, and Mark calls you a mentor in this space. But even you must be kind of learning about the market and how it's evolving. What's your take on what's going on out there in terms of these critical mineral lists?
Thanks, Matt. Listen, I have been around for about 35 years doing this, and the rare earth market never loses the ability to surprise me. So things move up and things move down. But one of the things that I usually talk about publicly is the fact that we need to learn from the successes or from successful examples. And the two successful examples I bring up is Europe's Critical Raw Materials Act and what they did around their battery supply chains and how they established battery supply chains out of nothing in Europe, and it takes money. And I think the IRA is an offtake on that example, but perhaps more importantly, as an industrial lesson, is just look at what China did over the last 3 decades. And I'm not saying do the same thing or do it the same way, but there are some powerful examples there where you have the alignment of state regulation, local economies, local governments. And in the most successful example in China, Baotou high-tech rare earth company, which is in Inner Mongolia, their rare earth operations are an incremental expansion of iron ore processing. There was an existing mine that was mining iron ore. There was an existing plant that was processing the iron ore into iron and steel. And incrementally, those facilities were expanded to recover rare earths from the tailings of the iron ore mine. So incremental byproduct economics are extremely powerful, especially when prices dip and you need to be only the low-cost producers survive. And this is exactly the strategy that Mark is following. Yes, Mark and I were joking that 4 years ago when he decided to get into this monazite, which, by the way, is an excellent raw material for rare earth production, but it has the radioactive baggage in uranium and thorium. So Mark can provide the ideal solution for the baggage because that's his bread and butter, produces and sells uranium. So that problem is solved. And then the technical capabilities that exist in energy fuels, and especially at the White Mesa Mill, hydrometallurgy, material science, chemistry, chemical engineering, these are all directly applicable to the production of rare earths. And that's exactly what White Mesa has done. And it's no surprise that Mark, in a very short period of time, has managed to produce neodymium, praseodymium at spec and at commercial quantities. And the strategy, perhaps more importantly, has the potential perhaps to get him back to that situation where once the proper value is captured of all the other products in the heavy mineral sands that he is exploiting, the monazite could be free or next to free, or at least at a much lower cost than anyone else around the world, including the Chinese operators, have. So this is a very solid strategy. It's not an accident. It's not a fluke. It's something that was deliberate and extremely well thought through. And, slowly now, after comparatively a very short period of time, we're seeing the fruits of Mark's work and the wisdom of the strategy.
Well, talk to me about that time frame that you've been at it 30 years. You've seen the markets come and go. Has this project moved forward quite rapidly? I mean, it feels like the White Mesa Mill is the kind of jewel of the crown in the sense that you feed it with something and then it spits out highly economic product at the other end. But has that helped kind of cut the time frame down in which certainly Energy Fuels has done it, and is that a barrier to others trying to replicate this?
Absolutely, there's no question about it. You look at all the other projects that have come up to speed in the last 2-3 decades, and it's almost it's very obvious that first of all, the vast majority of the juniors who try to develop rare earth projects fail. End of story. On the other hand, the successful ones probably spend a decade and a half, 2 decades in the junior mining wilderness before all the synergies come together, all the necessary pieces of the puzzle come together, technical, commercial, regulatory, etc., that allow them to look at the Linus example. I mean, I remember Linus starting in the mid-90s, and they started really flawless commercial production, 10 years ago. So it takes a very long time to do this unless you already have the skills and you're incrementally getting into this business from a position where you really know what you're doing. If you start a project, as a junior miner, and no offense to to junior miners or gold miners that decide to get into rare earths or copper miners that decide to get into rare or explorers. It takes a decade to bring together the critical skills that are necessary to do what White Mesa is doing. And those skills, in Energy Fuels case, already existed. Mark didn't have to hire people to tell them how to separate rare earth because they already worked for Energy Fuels and have been solvent extracting and purifying uranium for decades. So I think this is completely underestimated and completely missed when people look at new projects, and specifically in the case of Energy Fuels, because Energy Fuels started not from zero, but it started from 6 or 7 out of 10. And that is really what has allowed Mark to really shrink the time to production and demonstration.
Right. Okay. And obviously, Linus is a $7 billion Australian dollars company. They have taken on a while to get there. So we'll use them, I suspect, as a good example of many things over the next coming months and various interviews that we do. Jack, I'm going to bring you in. Last time out, Jack, you gave us really kind of good macro overview for people maybe new to the rare earth space who are just wondering, what all the fuss is about. Can you talk to me about China and the importance of ex-China? And when I say ex-China, I mean at all aspects of the food chain, ex-China, in North America actually is. Why do we need it?
First of all, let me tell you something. It's obvious to me what government is doing wrong, very wrong. Governments are looking at this space as a beauty contest. There's going to be a winner. At the moment, they've chosen one American company as the winner because they think it's the best looking. Okay, the only American company that has the production of rare earth products as professionally and with deep understanding is Energy Fuels. That's the only one. Second, everybody's just going over something that I think is key here. First of all, I appreciate that Constantine's been at this 35 years. 35 years ago, I had been at it 25 years. Okay? So what I'm telling you
You're
is
the winner. You're the winner.
Is that when I was a young man, monazite was the mineral of choice for rare earths. The uses were very limited. Okay, and the problem with monazite was that it's actually considered to be an ore of thorium, among other things. Okay, so when the concern about radiation became paramount in the U.S. and the world, I guess in the 60s maybe, or 50s or 60s, we stopped importing monazite and its products from Brazil and India, which is where we were getting them in Africa in those days. Okay, that stopped. Now, today, 2024, there's exactly one American company that has the skill set to extract the rare earths from monazite and is licensed to process uranium-bearing ores and to store thorium. Let's see, who would that be? Well, that turns out to be Energy Fuels. So I happen to believe that the extraction of rare earths from monazite is not particularly complicated in the sense that it's been known for about 100 years. Okay, but the processing of it is inhibited by the fact that you're going to have uranium and thorium byproducts. Therefore, there's no junior I can imagine that here's what they do. They say, well, that's no problem. Okay, we'll produce uranium and we'll store the thorium. Of course, they can't do that, but they forget to mention that. Only one company today in the United States can do that. That's Energy Fuels. So if you're going to process monazite, which is far richer in magnet rare earths than bastnasite, which the largest, I believe, primary deposit of bastnasite in the world is probably Mountain Pass. Okay? And that's nice, but monazite is a better ore. Now, we have not produced a lot of monazite in the United States recently. There is, however, a great deal of it being produced as a byproduct of heavy mineral sands around the world, and this is what Energy Fuels is going after. But getting back to the beauty contest, I want to tell you something. Last fall, Energy Fuels had an open house, and the keynote speaker was Miss America 2023. Okay? But the interesting thing is, besides being good looking, she also was a chemical engineer. Okay? And that I was fascinated by that, because she had every aspect you need to be a Miss America winner in the modern period. But here's the problem. It doesn't matter who wins the Miss America contest in Washington, Ottawa, and Brussels. Not at all. What they're forgetting in these national capitals with money and no particular subject matter expertise is that we need an industry, not a company. Okay, so in the United States, we have, as far as I can see right now, just two companies trying to produce rare earth products. That's Energy Fuels and another one in California. That's it. Now, if the automotive industry went totally into EVs, and they produce 17 million EVs a year for sale, which is the average number lately, it would require about 40,000 tons of rare earth permanent magnets. I believe, and Constantine could probably answer this better than I can, that in the entire history of the United States, I doubt that 5,000 tons of magnets have been produced in the last 50 years. And most of that, almost all of it, by Magnequench is currently a division of a company that Constantine founded. Okay? Now, suddenly, we're supposed to produce 40,000 tons of these magnets a year to satisfy total conversion to EVs. And by the way, don't forget, we need these magnets for wind turbines, appliances, aircraft, a few other things. Okay. It's most likely, in my opinion, that what will happen is that the two markets for rare earths in the world, military and consumer, military will take precedence. In the United States, the Department of Defense has so far been the big investor in trying to create a rare earths industry, a rare total supply chain, actually. Okay? And I believe that at the end, they will have first right on anything that's produced. After that will come the automotive industry and others. I want to finish by telling you something. Today, with all the hoopla and the noise and the banners, the U.S. automotive industry is 100% dependent on the Chinese magnet industry, as is the European industry. We are not producing these products. By the way, the magnet goes into the automotive industry through the motor maker, not the magnet maker, the motor maker. We have no motor makers in the West using rare permanent magnets produced anywhere outside of China or a small amount in Japan. We have a big road to hoe, and this is not a beauty contest. We need a lot of winners, and there can't be runners-up. Everybody's got to be a winner. We will never achieve the conversion of our automotive fleet to EVs. It's not possible, but we will make a dent in it. Okay, that's the best we can do. And right now, in my opinion, the leading company in North America is Energy Fuels in this race. But remember, you don't need a participation trophy. Everybody's got to win. You've got to have multiple companies. We can't keep complaining this one doesn't know how to do that, that one doesn't know how to do it. These guys, we have to have multiple winners. There's so much market that no one company could ever fill it.
Well, there you go, guys. I mean, that's, Mark, that's high praise indeed from the mentors, but I know you're not one to drink the Kool-Aid, so you've got to take some of that knowledge and say, well, how do we, Energy Fuels, monetize? I was going to say monetize the monazite. It'd be too much, even for me. But you've got to work out the kind of commercial realities of trying to do business and do business at the right speed. Because you talked about this isn't run by accident. It's by design. You are building this thing out. You, by the sounds of it, got head start on all of this. What's next from you? What do you think you need to do?
Well, as we said, we're going to keep making these steps, and we're going to tell the market what we're going to do, and we're going to do it. I mean, the next step is that we close the base transaction. We have a scheme implementation deed with them, and that has to go to shareholder vote with the base shareholders. So that's one of the next steps. The other next step is, and it's interesting because our team at White Mesa is saying, okay, we commissioned phase one, let's do phase two right now. Okay, they're ready to do the next step. I mean, I have to hold them back to a certain extent. So we're gonna be looking at how all the technical specifications, the learnings from phase one to build the most optimal, well thought out phase two and phase three, which is the heavies. We're starting to do the work required for the final investment decision for Astron as we speak on the Donald project. That's advancing, and we're also advancing the Bahia project. And the other thing that's important for people to understand, that when we've got energy fuels which are hydromet, uranium, and the ability to value add on this rare supply chain, the monazite, as it goes through the processing cycles, we're now acquiring a heavy mineral sands company that has a successful history of producing heavy mineral sands, not monazite, but heavy mineral sands in Kenya. For 10 years, they built a project, they financed a project, they paid their debt off, and they've been profitable, hugely profitable. Now, when we secure that team, they're going to be our heavy mineral sands and monazite producers globally to give us the expertise. So we're buying additional expertise. We have the processing skills for the hydromet, but we're not the physical guys, and we're acquiring the physical guys that have a proven track record. So we're putting two proven teams together. Nobody's ever done this with a uranium company and a heavy mineral sands company, ever. Some people say, well, it's never been done before. Well, you're right. Why not? There's no playbook here, Matt, and Jack and Constantine know this. So we're putting that team together, and they're going to help us with the work with Astron and the final investment decision and Bahia, and the step for them to recover the monazite is actually a very simple step when they're already doing the separations of these heavy mineral sands, the ilmenite, zircon, and rutile, is very simple. So we're getting momentum with skill sets and deposits. And that is something that people need to understand. And that's why I'm excited. And that's how we're going to roll. And I have a saying, do you know what you don't know? And a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And so in the heavy mineral sands, what do? We go find a group that knows that. And you know what? They found a group that knows what they don't know, which is a hydromet. And then we have people like Jack and Constantine, Brock O'Kelly, who also worked with Molycorp at Mountain Pass, Gareth Hatch, and other expertise that helps me understand what I don't know, to put the package together in a methodical, focused way. That's my objective. And so yeah, that's what's happening. That's what's going to be the news flow.
Well, Matt, let me jump in if I have the time. There's a couple of externalities that are not necessarily within Mark's control, and those need to come together for this strategy to bear significant fruit. First is you look at the charts, capital markets and customers, the two critical C's. Capital markets are in really bad shape, especially when it comes to rare earths today, because, companies, publicly listed companies, their share prices are very, very tightly correlated with pricing. So when prices go up, market caps for Linus, S&P, Neo, whoever, they go up. And when they come down, naturally, they come back down. We are right now, I'm probably ready to call it a bottom, but I think we've bounced along what I consider a bottom, below which level of prices a lot of the producers cannot survive, including in China. So I don't think there's a lot of room for prices to go down from here. And in fact, another commodity that I participate and follow, lithium, prices are starting to go up. And the lithium market is more transparent than the rare earths. There's a futures market. So September, October deliveries and the contracts are up. So I think we're getting to the bottom where the critical materials that go into EV supply chains have hit bottom. And by the end of the year, I expect to see higher prices. That will lift equity values. And that will make it a lot easier for everybody to raise money and implement their plans. The second aspect is customers. Again, prices have softened because the EV industry, which is today the largest buyer of neodymium, praseodymium, in the form of magnets for their electric motors, has, even though it's been growing, the growth has slowed because of all kinds of consumer buying, geopolitics, etc. However, those inventory bulges that were built in that slowdown, it looks to me that they've been whittled down, and EV supply chains will be bouncing back again. And then you'll have GM and Ford and Chrysler in North America, as well as all the European manufacturers being back in the market, buying substantial quantities of electric motors and therefore rare earth permanent magnets. So those supply chains, however, are at their infancies in North America. There have been announcements by 6 companies that they want to build rare earth permanent magnets in North America, and those will be natural customers for energy fuels. I expect over the next year or so to have a couple more announcements, and eventually there will be a market for rare earths to make magnets in North America and Europe, because one of the lessons we've learned the hard way during COVID is plants will shut down if very long supply chains get disrupted. And I'm not going to touch geopolitics. It's way above my pay grade. Strictly speaking, supply chains cannot afford to be stretched too far. So all of these tailwinds are in favor of Mark's strategy, and I have a lot of faith that the execution will meet the needs of the moment. But Mark is also getting very close to the automotive industry in North America, and I'll let him talk about when the time comes about what she's doing. So I think the team at Energy Fuels is executing on many levels and trying to control things that are even beyond its control, at least prepare for those eventualities. So a combination of a rational raw material strategy together with the material science and processing capabilities of White Mesa and the growing demand that is inevitable. Whether, I'm not making a moral judgment here, EVs are here to stay, and it will continue to drive industrial strategy around the West and Asia. So I think we're perhaps getting into the next decade of fairly massive growth for rare earth demand. And Mark's strategy, I think, makes all the sense in the world.
Well, look, I think there's some really good sounds, commercial advice there. In fact, I was going to ask you before you jumped in to maybe what advice would you give to Mark, maybe, and certainly us investors with regards to the commercial realities of doing business in this space. I think great job there. I better let Jack do the same thing. Words of advice from you, Jack, whether it be to investors or even Mark, with regards to the kind of broader market.
To be honest with you, I've never seen as well laid out a plan as Energy Fuels. I have no advice for Mark except to keep doing what he's doing because it's working.
Well, there you go, Mark. It's great. That's an A+ school report card there, pal.
Now, people should have seen my report cards when I was in high school, and they wouldn't have given me.
You're a late bloomer.
Yeah, I was a late bloomer. But look, I all I could say, and it goes back to what I said, is know what I don't know. Trying to find people that know and can complement the strategy. And I think, whether it's our, some of these people that are advising me and mentoring me like Jack and Constantine, securing these people in the heavy mineral sand business, putting together all this from scratch. And it goes back to what Constantine said, if you start at 6 or 7, it's been a lot of hard work to go from 6, 7 to, 8 or 9. And we never would have been able to do it. And the 4 years, we announced 4 years ago in April that we're getting into the heavy mineral sands. And it was interesting because literally a week or two after we announced, I met Jack and I met Constantine. And here we are still, talking and working together to do something that hasn't been done before. And that is the opportunity that, I think that we get valued as a uranium company. And I could even argue with almost anyone out there toe to toe that we're the best valued uranium company out there, publicly traded in the world because of our proven experience. And we get limited value on what we're doing in the rare earth space, even though I'm doing videos like this and press releases, we're acquiring this project, we're making commercial separated products, so that's the opportunity. We're trying to unlock, the value of both of these sectors with multi-commodities, because we see how brutal things are like lithium, graphite, cobalt, the rare earths, and uranium. If they go up, everybody's happy. They go down, everybody's sad. So diversification is important for long-term sustainability of profits and leveling out some of these ups and downs. And that is another key part of this strategy that a lot of people don't really think about enough, because they're happy when the price of these commodities is going up, and then they get depressed. And when I look at the lithium guys that I was talking to 2 or 3 years ago, and I see them at a conference, they don't have those smiles on their faces like they had 3 years ago. Okay. And even the uranium guys, when the price is 106, they're all smiles, and it's going to 150. When it's in the 80s, they're not smiling quite as much. So anyways, I appreciate the mentorship these guys have provided, and I look forward to continuing to take each step based on its merits to get there. And again, Matt, I appreciate, you putting this together so that we can have another chat on, the important strategy we have on this rare earth, element. Integration is really what the mission we're on. Integration from mines right on through the steps, through oxides, focusing the next steps of metals and alloys. And we're going to go and integrate as much as possible in this sector.
Go White Mesa. Right. Gentlemen, thank you very much for today. I think you've cleared up a lot of things with regards to the market, the broad market, where it's going, more importantly. Don't worry about this little reset. I think a lot of metals are in a bit of a reset moment at the moment. Understand the integrated pattern, and I think you guys have done a good job explaining, where the success is going to come from. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Thank you, Jack.